I am with the well-known and renowned, you've seen him on YouTube before, Nick Phillips, the president of the California Jazz Conservatory and an independent producer for Craft Recordings, where you have worked on so many beautiful box sets. And I mean that both sonically and visually. They're really great. And we're here to talk about Miles 54, the latest box set from Nick. And Nick, could you hold it up? Oh, there it is behind your head.
I have it behind me, and I also have it right here.
Beautiful. I'm in the Caribbean, so nothing I hold up shows. You can see I'm just enjoying I have a little Shirley Temple in front of me here. But this is another excellent box set and something sort of different. Instead of going for something sort of obvious, you're drawing from Miles Davis's career prior to the first classic jazz quintet. So we hear recordings with Sonny Rollins and other greats. So I'm curious, why now, and how did you decide on what tracks you were going to put in this box set, which is pressed on vinyl? And what are the other details? Who pressed it? Who cut the lacquers? All that good stuff.
That's a lot to unpack, but let me start. So the concept came about. I'm always looking for projects for craft recordings, and I realized that last year, 2024, was the 70th anniversary of Miles Davis's 1954 Prestige recordings. So that's how the idea came about. Very simple. And so the concept is to present everything Miles recorded on Prestige in 1954 and present it chronologically. And so that way you hear the evolution of Miles Davis's style over the period of that specific year, 1954. And you mentioned, I think you mentioned that Sonny Rollins plays on this set. I also have Percy Heath playing bass throughout all the tracks, Horace Silver and Thelonious Monk, Art Blakey and Kenny Clark, Milt Jackson, J.J. Johnson. So it's really an all-star cast of characters in this set.
Stellar cast. And this covers about 5 different records, doesn't it, from 1954? I believe so.
Well, so there were 5 recording sessions that Miles did in 1954. And those were originally released on 10-inch LPs. So there was the Miles Davis Quartet, Miles Davis Quintet, and then the Miles Davis All-Stars Volume 1 and 2. Those were the original 10 inches. And then Prestige reissued them in the 12-inch LP era on Blue Haze, Walkin', Bags Groove, and Miles Davis and the Modern Jazz Giants.
And who cut the lacquers? And I assume these were done from high-res files because these have been out before under
Yeah, they were Paul Blakemore had done transfers in super high res. We're familiar with 2496 and 192. He actually did them at 24384, I believe.
Wow, that's
yeah.
deep. Wow.
But Kevin Gray did the lacquer cutting, and they're pressed by Optimal in Germany, and they're really quiet pressings. They sound fantastic.
They are. They sound beautiful, and I have a few of these original pressings, and these are far quieter, obviously, than my original pressings, because some of the Prestige stuff was sort of pressed on noisy vinyl to begin with. And I noticed that particularly later on, like with Relaxin' or Working, you drop the needle and you hear the hiss right away.
Right, and these are also 180 gram vinyl.
Right. And I did, we did this interview before and it didn't work, so doing it. Nick was very kind. And I didn't ask you then, you're a trumpet player.
I am, yeah.
Right. So that brings a particular focus and presence for you listening to these recordings. How would you gauge this Miles just on a trumpet basis to the Miles in the following classic quintet? How is he different?
Well, the thing about Miles, and it's one of the things that's so appealing to me about Miles, is he never stood in one place stylistically. He was always evolving and growing and pushing the boundaries of what jazz was. So to me, it's always fascinating to hear Miles in any period and what he was doing. But in 1954, it's an important year because, In 53, he was cleaning up from his heroin habit in Detroit. And so when he started, recording in 1954 and recording with such incredible musicians like you have on this set, his playing really started to come into focus. And it's also interesting to me as a trumpet player that we hear Miles playing with a cup mute on some of these recordings. And, as he would evolve, he would favor a Harmon mute, which really became his signature sound. That was to come a little bit later. But in this collection, it's really interesting to hear Miles playing with a cup mute on things like Solar and You Don't Know What Love Is.
And it's interesting. I think about people who sort of came after Miles, who sort of cloned Miles. I think of Wallace Roney. Um, but
Yeah.
I but I really can't think about, and occasionally you hear that muted sound, but I can't think of that many people who tried to inhabit his skin. It's just such a daunting style to try to take on. Maybe we're just so far displaced we don't really think about that anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me, I don't know, I haven't counted up all the recordings or anything, but in terms of jazz trumpet with a mute, these days you do hear Harmon probably more than the other mutes in terms of jazz players when they're using a mute. On my own album called Moment to Moment, I used the Harmon mute quite a bit as well. I just love that sound
Right.
that you can get so much nuance out of that Harmon mute sound. Um, and that metallic buzz, it's just an amazing sound, and it's forever going to be associated with Miles because he really was the one that popularized that sound.
It's funny listening to Miles with these different bands, his consistency, shines through how beautifully he played. But for me, he doesn't quite, and maybe just because I've listened to the great quintet so many times, he doesn't quite sound like he's the master of the studio yet,
Hmm.
even though he still plays really, really beautifully. Um, are there favorite solos of yours of Miles from particular eras or songs from this set? From a trumpet player,
Oh, wow, that's a tough question. I mean,
I never.
there's so much great stuff on this set. I mean, many of the recordings on this set are what I would just call hard bop classics, like Walkin' and Blue and Boogie. Those are phenomenal. And then you have these up-tempo burners, the Sonny Rollins tunes, Aerogin and Oleo, Miles and Sonny playing together on those. I mean, I love those, of course. And again, I love the sound of his work using the cup mute in the trumpet, which is
Yeah.
this mute right here.
What are the differences in those different mutes you have there?
Well, this is a modern version of a cup mute. So it goes into the bell of the horn like that. And of course, the sound goes into this part of the cup and into this hole of the mute. The these are all kind of modern day variations of the Harmon mute. It's that Miles sound that gives that metallic buzz. Of course, it's made of metal. But and he also these up tempo things that Miles does on "Love Me or Leave Me" with that cup mute, and I'll Remember April. I love those tracks.
Wow, wow. And I'm curious, just as a trumpet player, in the drummers world, people love old Kay cymbals, Kay Zildjians, and that has been copied a lot. Um, is it similar with is it better to play an old trumpet? Does it have something special a modern trumpet does?
It's a very personal choice for any trumpet player what trumpet they play. Miles Davis played a Martin Committee trumpet. So a lot of players these days just try to find the old Martin Committee trumpet because they're so influenced by Miles and want to play the same or similar equipment. But there have been a lot of really great advances in trumpet making and manufacturing over the decades. So it's not a one size fits all.
Right, right. What kind of
And you
trumpet
can
do you
spend as
play?
much as you want to spend.
Really? How much is like, what does the trumpet you play cost?
Oh, I don't know what it costs now because the manufacturer is not in business anymore. But mine's a Canstel. Um, it has the bell is 100% copper, which gives it a warmer, darker sound. Um, I don't remember what I paid for that. It was probably like $4,000 at the time, like 20 years ago or
So
something.
how much is the most expensive
But
trumpet?
Monet makes trumpets that are very expensive that Wynton Marsalis and Terence Blanchard play, and those can be tens of thousands of dollars
Wow,
depending on the model.
that is just insane. Um, Gee whiz. Well, I'm going off the target here.
Yeah, we're off on a little trumpet tangent here,
No,
but
but I love this. At the California Jazz Conservatory, how do I mean, there must be students of no means there. What kind of trumpets do they play, and can you get them instruments? How does that all work?
well, there's such a range of trumpets, and a lot of them are, if you're talking about young students. So in our jazz school, community music school, um, we have students from age 11 all the way through adults of all ages to octogenarians, etc. But so when I started out playing the trumpet, my mom just rented a student model by a company called King, and back then we were paying like $25 a month or something. So students can rent trumpets. Some really good standard professional models that don't totally break the bank are Yamaha and Bach. When I was in high school and college, I played a Bach trumpet. But again, when you're a top level professional,
I give you the trumpet.
got the money to spend, and maybe
they
you
give
get a break if you provide an endorsement. But you can spend a lot of money on a fine instrument for sure.
And when I was a kid and studying to be a drummer, there were only the big American brands. Yamaha was the first brand to come from outside of the country. And the drums were, even the Yamaha drums were so expensive. They,
Yeah.
they were just obscene how expensive those full sets were. But now there are drums being made all over the world, and you can get really great drums very inexpensively. Is that true for trumpets as well?
You can get better trumpets inexpensively than you could when I was a kid
Right.
starting to play.
Right.
My first trumpet played horribly out of tune. There is a
Right.
big difference between a student model trumpet and a professional level trumpet. Having to do with not only how well it plays in tune, but the ease of which you can play it, and the amount of resistance and all that kind of stuff.
Who are your and this is my last trumpet question. Who are like some of your favorite contemporary trumpet players? And
Oh,
I mean, fewer trumpet players than there used to be, is my experience.
That's a tough question, but Kristen Scott Atunde Adra is playing some amazing trumpet. Keyon Harold's playing great trumpet. Sean Jones. I loved Roy Hargrove. It's too bad he's not around anymore, but I absolutely love his trumpet playing.
Marquise Hill is great.
Marquise Hill is fantastic.
Phenomenal.
Too.
And I actually really think Chris Bode's a great trumpet player. I mean,
he can play. I've heard him live in concert before. He can get around the horn.
He can play. I saw him. Forgot who the drum was, but outside of Being Romantic, those guys they were burning it down. A consistent thing on the Kraft box sets, and they're all above your head there. Coltrane, that beautiful Bill Evans with the velour cover.
Yeah.
The Charlie Parker, that Miles Davis set.
That's the Miles Davis Prestige 10-inch LP collection.
Oh, wow. When did that come out?
Oh, that was a minute ago. Let me see.
Wow.
I don't remember. It's been a while. Let me see what the
Oh, and it's big. Wow.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, Nick. It's amazing.
This is out of print now.
Wow.
This was a number of years ago. I don't remember exactly when.
All the Kraft box sets, they don't look alike, and they're all beautifully designed. They're beautifully executed. The stock on the box, on this Miles box, is thick, and there are indents and cutouts on the.
Oh yeah, I gotta show you this. So this the booklet slides in right here.
Yeah, I love that. It's got its
And
own little sleeve pouch, and then you have a different thing. I
yeah,
mean,
and then of course the four LPs right there.
people complain, and I'm not asking your comment about this. People are always complaining about Chad Kassem's UHQR box because they look like they're from
I'm not
1950.
going to comment on someone
You
else's
don't have to
box.
comment, but they are so clunky and hard to deal with. They could take a note from you guys because you all produce the most, and it's not me saying, and I think it's true, the most beautiful box sets. It's just this is the kind of artwork you would keep, and hand down. I mean, that crazy Bill Evans box set, which is a CD set, I think, the cover
Yeah.
is
Well,
actually
actually,
it's like
so both
velvet.
both this Miles box and that Bill Evans box, I had the great fortune of working with um, a art director named Christopher Leckie, and he just brought all kinds of creativity to both of these projects. It's a real joy and a privilege for me as a producer to be able to work with an art director that's creative and they get inspired by the music and they want to do something creative. And I think, when you're talking about someone like Miles, who was always creative, it's appropriate that the box set itself has a great amount of visual creativity.
All the craft box sets are just so beautifully done. I know we talked last time about the birth of the bop. Those sleeves,
Mm.
mind pulling out one of those sleeves? Those are like Twilight Zone optical illusion effect.
Well, what we were trying to do here, so um, Savoy Records have put out compilations on 10-inch LPs of various recordings. So we were just trying to replicate what they had done. And oh yeah, the stock is pretty. It's
The
very
stock is thick,
thick.
and the cover. I mean, they're really beautiful, and they're just so cool and so beautifully done. And you did Hot House as well, right?
Yes, I don't have a
Right.
copy of it right
Oh
here, but
man,
I worked on Hot House, the complete Jazz at Massey Hall recordings.
not only does that sound fantastic, and you get the version with actual Mingus and then the Mingus overdubs,
Right.
it has that beautiful clear slip case, which I've never
Yes.
seen anybody else do, and it's sturdy. That thing is going to last.
And you know what? That was also Christopher Leckie doing the
There
art
you go.
direction.
Wow.
Yeah, he does great work.
Amazing work. And the cover of the Sonny Rollins Gold West feels like alligator skin. I mean,
Oh, it's like, yeah, it's meant to be simulate a rattlesnake skin. So like
oh, right.
rattlesnakes from, the desert in California.
I just made a video for my channel where I talked about all the new upcoming Record Store Day releases and how tired I am of triple LP $80 sets. And it's just, I mean, and it's not only the price is outrageous. In some of these companies, they're replicating basically the same artwork with the same fonts, and it drives me nuts. But you really get your money's worth uh, musically, and the artwork on these things is so unique. So
Well, thank you for that. Thank you.
certainly, it's something for people to continue or to consider when they're dumping so much money into these things. The stuff is expensive now. I remember when I used to work at Tower Records, the zenith of remasters and reissuing were the Japanese box sets.
Hmm.
But then finally, Sony started matching all of those with everything they did, and now a company like Kraft raises it even further. So this has been out a minute. I know the Jazz Bums, my buddies did an interview with you, which I haven't watched. But how has the reception been to Miles 54 compared to like the Sonny Rollins Go West, if you can say?
Oh, we've gotten a lot of great press and response to this box.
And you're moving units.
Yeah, yeah, and I always say this because it's incredibly unlikely that once a set like this runs out, that it will be repressed. So if you want it, I suggest buying it now before it's actually out of print, because once it's out of print, the cost will go way up for you to get a copy.
And I like the fact that you all don't make a big deal and say limited edition, it's numbered. No, it is what it is, but be aware. I appreciate these business practices.
Hmm.
So what are you working on next, Nick? What's going around in your head, your ever creative brain?
Well, I don't want to say too much because it hasn't been officially announced, but I am working on another Miles Davis box set.
Oh, wow.
You could probably figure out what it what it will be.
It can.
Miles 54.
Oh, wow.
And I'm
Oh,
also working
wow.
on a Bill Evans project that I can't say too much about, but I'm really excited about it.
That'll be amazing if we're talking about the classic quintet and the working, steaming, relaxing. Man, that'll really be something. Because those records are very hard to find in any condition. Reissues, or I mean, I know probably Chad has reissued them, but those are such great records and uh never get talked enough about. To me, that is the great Miles group. Maybe my favorite, even though I might like the Tony Wayne group a little bit more. Well, that's exciting. And what's happening at the California Jazz Quintet these days? And where is it located? And did you
Oh,
already?
the California Jazz Conservatory.
Oh,
So
sorry.
we're in Berkeley, and we're focused on our jazz school, community music school program. As I mentioned earlier, we have students, middle school and high school age in our youth program, performing in jazz ensembles, and we have adults of all ages. In this winter quarter alone, we have about 450 enrollments.
Wow.
About 100 of them are in our youth program. And
That-
I think it's a little more than 70 classes we're running right now.
wow,
So
that's
that's a lot going on.
wow. That's remarkable. And is that your like 9 to 5 day-to-day gig?
Yeah,
Are you there
that's
now?
my full-time day gig.
Oh, wow. Is that where you are now, or are you at home?
I'm in my office at California Jazz
Oh,
Conservatory.
wow. So what will so it's noon there. What will the rest of your day at the school look like?
I'm working on a whole variety of things here at my desk. And then, most days of the week, starting at about 4 in the afternoon and throughout the evening, that's when students come in, and also on the weekends during the day. So we have evenings, classes and ensembles running, and also on the weekends.
And with all this going on, do you have time just to play for yourself and sit in and keep playing jazz?
That's one thing that's taken a bit of a back seat right now because, my job here at the California Jazz Conservatory, also known as the Jazz School, is full-time plus.
Mhm.
And then, of course, I have my side hustle of record production.
Side hustle.
Yeah, it's currently a side hustle. It used to
That's
be my full-time job, but
right.
so that keeps me really busy. So unfortunately, my trumpet playing's taken a back seat, but hopefully at some point in the future, I'll be able to carve out some more time
That'd
to
be,
get back into playing because I do miss it.
I appreciate your generally, and I'm not blowing smoke up your ass, your generally sort of ego-less approach to all these things. You're a very down-to-earth, straight shooting kind of guy. You don't bitch and moan, and I really appreciate your general approach. So I'm curious, is your wife a musician too?
Not professionally. She was a singer and a piano player,
Oh,
growing up. And I actually met her the very first time I met her was at the album release concert that Kava Menzies and I did for our album Moment to Moment.
oh wow. Well, that's
So she and Kava, met when they were 10 years old or so, singing together in San Francisco Girls Chorus.
that's
So
fabulous.
my wife loves music, and
You
so
have to, I think, to
we
be.
have that in common for sure.
That's fabulous. Well, Nick, thank you again for taking time out to speak with me again for my little channel. It's always great and informative to have you on here. And I look forward to speaking to you further with these next box sets.
I look forward to it too. Thanks, Ken. It's always a pleasure.
Likewise, Nick.